What we thought would be a simple drive from the top of Sani Pass turned into one of the most challenging journeys we've ever experienced. We faced mechanical failures in the middle of Lesotho, drove what is easily the worst road we've ever seen, broke down again just days later, and somehow still made it all the way to the Kruger National Park. This is a part of a trip where everything started to go wrong, and somehow also everything that made it unforgettable.
We've just made it to the top of Sani Pass. This is one of those bucket list places you always hear about. And after that drive up, it feels well deserved.
We are now heading deeper into Lesotho, all the way to Motibong Lodge. We sit right next to Katsi Dam. It is about 180 kilometers from the pub. On paper, it should only take us 3 to 4 hours to complete.
But before we left, Tian did what he always does, a quick check underneath the bucky.
When I checked underneath the bucky, I could feel that the front universal joint was very hot. This is very unusual. This was caused by internal wear. It wasn't making a terrible noise yet, so we decided to keep on going.
We left Sani Pass just after 12, thinking we'd arrive at the lodge around 3 in the afternoon. The route itself fairly straightforward. You follow the A3, then connect to the A1 past the diamond mines and eventually turn off onto the B804 towards Motibong. But very quickly things started changing. Even on the tar road, the terrain is not easy. It's constant up and down, steep climbs followed by long descents. The kind of driving puts a lot of stress on the drive terrain components. And that's when I started noticing the noise. The universal joint was getting louder, not just a faint sound anymore. Something was definitely wearing out.
We had planned ahead for navigation. Before leaving South Africa, we activated roaming on Tian's phone so we could use GPS in Lesotho. But when we needed it, it just didn't work. And suddenly, we were in the mountains with no signal, no direction, and no idea if we were even on the right road. Luckily, I managed to get my roaming working, and that's what kept us on track for the rest of the journey.
When we turned onto the B804, things still felt manageable. The first 30 to 40 kilometers were decent gravel road, nothing we haven't driven before. But just past Motibong turnoff, everything changed.
This was, without a question, the worst road we've ever driven in our lives. We've done a lot of 4x4 driving before, but this was the first time where rocks were actually hitting the axles underneath the bucky. And somehow, taxis were still flying past us like it was a normal road. There was one section in particular where I didn't think we were going to make it through. The road was covered in massive rocks, sharp, uneven, and unavoidable. I remember sitting there thinking, this might be where we turn around.
In situations like that, there's really only one approach. You go slow, pick your line carefully, and trust your vehicle. And somehow, the Hilux kept on going.
We finally arrived at Motibong Lodge just before 6 p.m. What was supposed to be a 3 to 4 hour drive had taken us nearly 6 hours. The last 20 kilometers alone took us an hour. But the moment we saw the dam, everything changed.
After unloading, I decided to take the universal joint apart to see exactly what we are dealing with. And what I found was worse than expected. There were no needle bearings left inside the universal. Nothing. Just dust. So we improvised. I used a piece of Teflon tag that I cut down with a Leatherman, shaped it to fit where the bearing should be, and used Vaseline as lubrication. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep us going.
The next morning we left early, driving through thick mountain mist. At one point we almost drove straight into donkeys standing in the middle of a road on a downhill.
We exited Lesotho through the Fourierberg border post and went straight to a Midas in Bethlehem to get the proper parts. We bought 3 new universals and replaced it right there in the parking lot.
After everything we had just been through in Lesotho, we decided to take a short break before continuing the journey. We made our way to Pretoria, where we stayed with Tian's aunt for the night. It was exactly what we needed, a chance to reset, have a proper home-cooked meal, and just breathe for a moment after days of mechanical stress and rough roads. We even squeezed in a little bit of fun, doing an escape room and spending time playing with the cats. Something completely different from life on the road. But the next morning, we were back on the road again, this time heading toward the famous Panorama Route in Mpumalanga. Along the way, we stopped in Witbank to meet up with friends from home, all the way from Patensie, who just happened to be in the area at the same time. Out of all the places in the country, we ended up crossing paths in the middle of a road trip. From there, the landscape started changing. The flat roads gave way to rolling green hills, winding mountain passes, and waterfalls around almost every corner. This stretch of road is known as the Panorama Route, one of the most scenic drives in South Africa. Every turn reveals something new: deep valleys, dramatic cliffs, and endless shades of green. After everything we had gone through, it finally felt like we could enjoy the journey again.
But that didn't last long. About 10 kilometers before Blythe River Canyon Forever Resort, we got stuck behind a truck on a large uphill section. With very little airflow coming through the radiator, I noticed the temperature gauge starting to climb. And suddenly it shot straight into the red. At that moment, we knew we had trouble.
We pulled over immediately, but by then, the damage was already done.
The electric fan never kicked in, likely damaged from all the corrugations in Lesotho, and the engine overheated badly. At that point, I suspected the worst: a blown head gasket.
The campsite at Blythe River Canyon Forever Resort was my favorite campsite thus far. It had stunning trees everywhere, bathroom facilities were great, and the cleaning staff was fantastic. The next morning, while we waited for the pods, we decided to make the most of the situation and explore the area. We went to the Blythe River Canyon lookout points, the largest green canyon in the world. The three rondavels rose out of the landscape like massive huts carved from rock, shaped over millions of years. And at bergs like potholes, swirling water has carved deep cylindrical formations into the rock, a reminder of just how powerful water can be over time. And of course, no trip to this area is complete without a stop at Harry's Pancakes, an absolute must. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the moment that everything went wrong. We were stranded on the side of a road, 10 kilometers from our campsite. It was late afternoon, just before 5 p.m. on a Friday.
We tried calling for pods, but no one answered, or they didn't have what we needed. And then, completely out of nowhere, someone stopped.
Complete stranger from Tanin, a farmer, stopped to help us. He really saved our trip.
And maybe our lives, as it wasn't safe where we were standing. Thank you, Quibus. We really appreciate your help.
He towed us all the way to our campsite and then said something we didn't expect.
He would drive 142 kilometers the next day to bring us the parts we needed. And he kept his word.
That night we were camping at Graskop. After checking in with basic tools, headlights and a lot of patience, I started stripping the engine.
While Tian worked on the bakkie in the cold, I made pasta for supper. Not exactly how we imagined the evening going.
Luckily the campsite was quite empty, as the impact drill made a bit of a noise. And I got some funny looks from the other campers. I replaced the head gasket right there in the campsite.
With the bakkie running again, we decided to celebrate the only way we know how, by doing something slightly crazy. We went to the Graskop Gorge Lift Company. First, we ziplined across the gorge, and then it was time for the big swing. The big swing drops you 70 meters into a free fall, reaching speeds of up to 140 kilometers an hour in under 3 seconds. And of course, I had to go first.
After this adrenaline rush, it was time to hit the road.